Now, it's a big weekend for the ruling party as its policy conference gets underway this weekend. Registration is taking place at the Turffontein Racecourse, and our senior reporter Siphamandla Goke is there, and he joins me now for an update. Sipa, what's the latest at the Turffontein Racecourse?
Well, it's the continuation of that registration process. A number of delegates and leaders from various provinces of the ANC have come here to register. Some of them have registered. They have left the venue. Registration process is moving very smooth for now. Not too many queues. People will just walk in, register, collect their tags, which they will use to access the conference venue tomorrow, and then they leave. Others keep on coming. So the whole day today is dedicated to the registration process. And once that is done, then tomorrow the National Policy Conference of the ANC gets underway here in Johannesburg at the Nasrec venue. That's where it will be taking place. It's the same venue that hosted the 2017 National Congress of the governing African National Congress. So today there is nothing much that is happening except that they are dealing with logistical issues and a number of challenges that have to do with registration, so that by tomorrow when the conference gets underway, it's all systems go. I've spotted delegations from the Free State, I've spotted delegations from the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and a bit of Gauteng for now. So those are the three provinces that I have spotted delegates, including provincial leaders from those provinces. In KwaZulu-Natal, Bheki Mtolo, the provincial secretary, has already arrived here to register. And then in the Eastern Cape, the provincial secretary, Lulama Ngcukaitobi, has also arrived here to register. He says the delegation from the Eastern Cape will be seized with the issue of socio-economic challenges. They are bringing here proposals that have got to do with issues of unemployment, poverty and inequality. Of course, is mindful of the fact that the issue of step aside is likely going to dominate, bearing in mind that a number of provinces, including KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo and Mpumalanga, have voiced their views and said they will be calling for the total scrapping of step aside as a resolution of the ANC. The ANC in the Eastern Cape saying, well, there is nothing wrong with the resolution. It was meant to save the ANC from losing moral ground and also rebrand itself. All those leaders who are facing legal troubles should step aside. But interestingly, the Eastern Cape, or the ANC in the Eastern Cape, is saying step aside must remain, but they are open and they are willing to negotiate, tweaking it to say, how long should a person who has been asked to step aside spend some time at home? In other words, they are saying you can regulate the participation and the period of saying, you know, you've been asked to step aside, you have stepped aside for 4 years now, and you must come back. So the Eastern Cape is saying, well, we can talk about the number of months or the period that a person spends on step aside, but the resolution itself must remain. Let's take a listen to their provincial secretary, Lulama Ngcukaitobi.
People that have been indicted should step aside. In particular, the changes that we think can be made is about one, people that have been indicted on the basis of corruption, people that have been indicted on serious crimes like murder. You can't think about those particular matters. It's just a direct contravention of who we are as the organization, as a revolutionary movement. So we can't go back about that particular matter. We think that the National Conference did excellent work. The National Executive Committee affirmed that particular position insofar as the guidelines that have been developed. We can rework those particular guidelines so that it can at least ensure that the matters that relates to the time period that a person stays outside the organization to a step aside, we can regulate those particular matters. But we affirm that the step aside is one of the key elements insofar as rethinking about the morality and the standing of the organization in the society.
And Sipa, you know, I think what will also be interesting is the cadre deployment part of its organizational policies, especially looking at the fact that, like you said earlier, at some point they called it the year of the cadre. They promised to, for instance, make sure that they upgrade their young from the Youth League and the Women's League especially. And I wonder if that's been done. And Sipa, I wonder if this will be a big contentious point, looking at what the 5th volume of the Zondo report said in terms terms of this particular way of appointing people in the ANC being deemed unconstitutional by the Chief Justice.
Indeed, as you see me checking here, I'm trying to check which leaders of the ANC are coming to register here. Earlier on, we spotted Paseka Nopondo from the Free State. I wanted to bring him in terms of this conversation, as well as Sizo Pilamkize from the National Youth League task team. But yes, if you come to the policy conference of the ANC and you connect that with the report of the Zondo Commission, you've mentioned the issue of cadre deployment, which was heavily criticized during that commission, and the final report pronounced on the issue of cadre deployment of the ANC. It's a policy that has been criticized by many people, even outside the ANC. Opposition parties have been slamming that policy on cadre deployment. The ANC has vigorously defended it, saying there is no country in the world that runs government and do not deploy people who are sympathetic to the views, policies and values of the same party. As much as you want professionals to be deployed to the state and become professionals and do their jobs, but at the end of the day, it must be people who are sympathetic and who share the same vision, views and policies and the direction with the governing party. So Jeff Hadebe, as the head of policy, is seized with that matter of ensuring that they discuss the Zondo Commission and its report and the implications, but most importantly, how the party will respond to that. I will bring in Sizo Pilamkize here, who speaks for the National Youth League task team, as this policy conference of the ANC will have to discuss issues affecting young people. Siyabonga ngesikhathi sakho Mamkize. What key issues and priorities you would like to see this policy conference discussing, particularly on issues that affect young people, youth unemployment?
We want this policy conference to speak on youth unemployment, to speak on education, to speak on the healthcare system of South Africa. We have already have proposals as young people, because we've had a meeting of the Progressive Youth Alliance, so that we're able to have SASCO bringing in their issues. We're able to have the Youth League bringing in the issues of young people. Now, our issues as it relates to education, we believe that there is little access to well-deserving young people to education. They do not have access because they do not have money. And we believe that part of the policies of the ANC was still, as the Progressive Youth Alliance, pushing for the free education. And we believe that South Africa can be able to afford free education. I mean, if you can have millions that you want to spend on a certain flag, surely you can have millions that you can secure for education. The healthcare system also, we believe that the most vulnerable people, the people who are from townships, rural areas, do not have the good healthcare system, and we must be able to fix that.
But successive ANC economic policies have failed to translate into dealing with these issues decisively: poverty, inequality and unemployment that affect young people and the most vulnerable members of the South African society. What will be different from this policy conference that people can say, well, maybe things will change? Because the ANC has had a number of policies that are not being implemented, and they do not need to converge every 5 years, discuss policies. They just need to be radical in implementing the policies that they have already adopted.
I think the problem with the ANC is that immediately after every national conference or national policy conference, we go straight to factional battles and we forget about policies. If we want to implement policies, we will factionally choose one policy that we would want to implement and speak about. I mean, we spoke about land. We resolved on land expropriation as the ANC without compensation. There has been no movement. We're going to another national conference of the ANC now. There's been no movement. What needs to happen, Spamandla, is that it is time young people take over. It is time that we bring fresh minds. It is time that you even change the head of policy of the ANC, because you need a person who will understand that if we agree on policies, we must be able to agree on the program of implementing those policies. Otherwise, we're always going to come, have policy conferences and not be able to come with resolution.
Let's talk about one point which is set to dominate this policy conference, the step-aside resolution. A number of provinces have said it must be scrapped, and other provinces like the Eastern Cape, the Northern Cape, are saying it's not going anywhere, it must stay because it's designed to save the ANC. Ordinarily, this conference ought to be dominated by policy issues and discussions, but step aside will feature. Has the National Task Team of the ANC Youth League taken a position on step aside? And if so, what is that position?
We have not necessarily taken a position, but we have had discussions, and there are many views. Other views are saying it must be scrapped, other views are saying it must not be scrapped, other views are saying it must be reviewed. And my view, which is personal, is that it must be reviewed, because if you scrap it, you run away from holding people accountable who are putting the name of the ANC in disrepute.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Sizophila Mkhize speaks for the National Youth League task team. As you know, issues of policy and current challenges in South Africa affect mostly young people, issues of poverty, inequality and unemployment. But most importantly, people who are heavily affected by the socio-economic challenges in the country are women.
It's going to be quite interesting, Siphamandla, and of course we all know that the policy conference will also tell those delegates and members exactly who they want to put forward as their top 6 in December. But thank you, Siphamandla Goke, live for us in Johannesburg. I'll be seeing him in Nasrec tomorrow.